This is Mrs. Naslund, and today we'll be doing Units 11, Lesson 7, Represent Numbers on a Number Line. Our learning target for today is, I can plot and estimate the position of whole numbers, fractions, decimals, and mixed numbers on a number line. All right, so first we're going to look at a couple different number lines, and we're going to talk about how to estimate where different numbers or fractions or decimals go on the number line. So let's read the direction here. It says each point on a number line represents a number. Estimate the position of each whole number on the number line below. Plot and label a point for each number. So first I have to analyze my number line I'm given. I've got 100, got 200, and I have this little point halfway in between. So when I divide that in half, I have to think, okay, what's halfway between 100 and 200? And that would be 150. So I know that this little dot right here is 150. And then I'm going to try to divide it up a little bit more. So I'm going to place some more lines to divide it up a little bit more. So now I'm going to say, okay, what is halfway between 100 and 150? So what would be the point that would be right here? And again, what's halfway between 100 and 150? I'd say about 125. Okay, so we've got 100, 125, 150, and then I'm going to try to figure this one out too. Halfway between 150 and 200 would be 175. So it's really going up now with my extra lines in there. It's going up by 25. So we're at 100, 125, 150, 175, 200. Now, we're just estimating where these different numbers go. And so we're going to go ahead and I'm going to place a dot, and then we'll label the dot for each one with a number. So let's start with 160. So I know that this middle point was 150, and I know it's less than 175. So 160 is going to go somewhere like right there. So I'm going to go ahead and label that number 1. All right, so I labeled number 1. And now we're going to try to do number 2, 119. So I think to myself, okay, if this is 100 and this is 125, I know it's less than 125, but more than 100. And so let's say it's probably right about here. We'll label that one number 2. All right, we'll put a little 2 there. I can just write it out, I think. All right. And then we'll go to the next one, 176. So using the same strategy, remember we ended up dividing it up by 25. So we had 100, 125, 150, 175. This is 176. So it's going to be right on the other side here of that number. And that's going to be our number 3. Label that number 3. And then now we're looking at 135. All right. So let's see. We know that this is 100, 125, and this is 150. So it's going to be on this side of 25, but not too close to that 150. So probably right about here. So we'll say that's number 4. And good. This is just an estimate. It doesn't have to be absolutely exact, but we just want to make sure that we know where on the number line approximately these would fall. And then the last one is 191. So if this was 175 and this is 200, it's going to fall like right about here, right before it gets to that 200 point. We'll throw a dot in there and we'll call that 191. Or sorry, 5, which is 191. Okay? So you can see how breaking it apart helped me estimate and decide where these whole numbers went. All right, so next, let's read the directions here. It says, estimate the position of each fraction on the number line. Below, plot and label the points for each number. So I'm going to take the same strategy I used before. This time, my number line has a 0, a half, and a 1. So everything we're looking at is between 0 and 1. And I want to try to divide it up smaller so it makes it easier to calculate. So first thing I always do is try to divide everything in half. I'm going to put a line here, and I'm going to think, okay, what fraction is halfway between 0 and a half? And from our fraction unit, we know that halfway between 0 and a half is 1/4. Okay, So we know this is 1/4. Now I want to think, okay, how about if I put it right here? What's between 1/2 and 1? And right in between those would be our 3/4. So really we're going up by quarters, right? We're going 1/4, 1/2, 3/4, and 1. All right. Now I look at all my choices. I have a couple of these that would be really easy, right? My 1/4 and 3/4, so I've got those figured out already. And I see a lot of 8s. So I'm going to actually divide these even more because right now I have 4 sections. 1, 2, 3, 4. I divided into 4ths, but now I want to divide it into 8ths so that my bottom denominator, it'll be really easy to place these if I have 8 sections to count through. So I'm going to go ahead and divide these into 8ths this time. And to do that, I'm going to split all of these in half again, right? I've got 1, 2 sections. 3, 4 sections. 5, 6 sections. And 7, 8 sections. So now that'll make it really easy for me to do my 8ths and my 4/8. So let's go ahead and place all the ones we do know, and then we'll come to this last one, this 7/16. So let's start with our 1/4, because that's a real easy one. We had that one figured out right from the beginning. I'm going to drag that over here. We said that 1/4 is right there in the middle. I'm going to label that number 7. And then we'll go ahead and place our 3/4, which was number 8. 3/4 we knew right away was right here because we counted by quarters. That was my 3/4. That's number 8. And then we did the 8ths. So 4/8. I'm going to count over 1, 2, 3, 4 of the 8 pieces that I divided it into. 4/8 is the same as 1/2, right? If I simplified that 4/8, I would get 1/2. So that one we know is right. So that's number 6. All right. And then we've done all of these. Let's look at 7/8. So same strategy. We're going to count over those 7 of those 8 spots. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's going to go right there. Label that number 9. And now the tricky one is this 7/16 that's left. Because right now we're divided into 8ths. So how can we get it so it's divided into 16ths? And what we could do is we could split all of our 8ths in half again, right? Because 8 times 2 is 16. So I'm going to add another line in between each of these to make these into 16 different spots. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Of course, you can just draw these with your pencil, but to make it more easy to see, I'm doing it this way. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Get it down there. 13, 14, and 15, 16. All right. And I want 7/16. So I'm going to grab my dot here and I'm going to count over 7 spots. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right there next to our half. Drag that down there. And that is my 10, which was 7/16. So you can see that I used my knowledge of fractions to help divide up the line so I could figure out where each number went on the number line. All right, so on the next one here, it says estimate the position of each mixed number on the number line below. Plot and label each one. So right now we have a 1 and a half and a 2. So I'm going to do the same thing I did before and add lines to represent the 1/4. So we've got 1 and 1/4, 1 and 1/2, 1 and 3/4. I'm going to do that first. All right, so that'll take care of my first 2 because the bottom numbers here are 4 and now my sections are 4. So let's go ahead and plot those. I've got 1 and 1/4. So 1 1/4, if my little dot will come over with me, 1 1/4, which was 11, and my 1 3/4, which was 12. All right, and now I'm going to divide those in half again to create 8 sections. All right, so I've divided it into 8 sections. So 1 7/8. I'm going to count over 7 sections. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 1 7/8 will go right there, and 1 1/8 will go over here. And then I'll go ahead and label those two. So I end up with 1 7/8, which is 13, and 1 1/8, which is 14. And then my last one is my 1 13/16. So again, divide all these up one more time to make 16 spots. All right, so I've divided those all again, and I'm going to count over 13 spots. I know that this is 8 because it's halfway, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So 1 13/16 is going to go right there. And that would be labeled number 15. So you can see how I was able to go ahead and take and break that apart, all my fractions, and also place them on the number line. So we're going to do one more example. All right, for our last problem, we're going to estimate these different things on the number line. So both mixed numbers and decimals. And we're going to start by breaking it up into the chunks that we do know. So I'm going to break it up and then we'll talk about it. All right, so I divided up our number line. I looked, it was between 0 and 2. So halfway in between was 1. And then I said, let's divide that again. So halfway between 0 and 1 was half. And halfway between 1 and 2 was 1 1/2. And then I said, let's make it even smaller. So I divided those halves in half. And I ended up with 1/4, 1/2, 3/4. And I hit 1. And I had 1 1/4, 1 1/2, 1 3/4. Then I get to 2, and then I even divided it smaller to get to some of those eighths. So let's place these ones that we can. 1 3/8. So I know this is 1. I know there's 8 sections. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 before I get to 2. So I'm going to go over 3 of those to get that spot. So 1 1, 2, 3/8. 1 3/8. Place that one right there. All right, the next one here is 1 2/4. So I know where the 1 is, and I know in my head that 2/4 is really close to 2.25, which we know is 1/4 from our fraction unit. So I'm looking for 1 1/4 approximately. This is 1 1/2, and this is 1 1/4, so it's right next to that line. And again, this is estimating, so it doesn't have to be right on. Somewhere right about there, so that'll be number 22. All right, I'm going to skip 2/3 for a second. We're going to look at this one. 73 hundredths. So I'm going to look at my number line, and I know that, again, remember this was a half, and this is 3/4, and I know that 0.75 is the same as 3/4, so it's just going to be a little shy, a little less than 3/4, which would be right about there. So we'll label that one number 24. All right, now going back to this 2/3, I know that 2/3 is less than 1 because it's not 1 2/3, it's just 2/3. So I have to divide this section into 3 sections. So I'm just going to draw little lines above it and try to divide it as equally as I can into 3 sections. And it may not be perfect, but it's going to be close. There we go. Divided it into 3 different groups. See, 1 group, 2 group, 3 groups. So now it'll be pretty easy to plot my 2/3. Now again, this is just an estimation, so it could be a little off. So 1, 2, 2/3 are going to go right next to this one here. And we'll go ahead and write that down as number 23. All right, now our last number is 1 4/5. So I know it's greater than 1. It's going to fall in this section. And there's 5 different chunks, so I need to divide between 1 and 2 into 5 chunks before I can place it. So I'll go ahead and do that. All right, and now I can go ahead and use my dot, and I know it's going to be past that 1. I'm going to count over 4/5. So 1, 2, 3, 4/5. So that'll be number 25. So as you can see, some of these you're just going to have to take your time, break it apart, really think about, is it asking me to be a whole number, less than a whole number, and so forth. Great work today.